thanks everyone for joining us today. Today we're going to be talking about digital and social media when it comes to marketing and advertising. And I have in parentheses here maybe a couple of other things because there are definitely some holistic things that I'd like to talk about before we get into the nitty-gritty. There will be people who will be trickling in, we're guessing, and that's totally fine. If you have any questions for me, feel free to use the chat. Hopefully I'll be able to get through this presentation in a timely manner, and we'll have some time for questions at the end. And without further ado, I'll get started. So my name is Cooper, and I am the design director at Story2 Designs. We are a worker-owned and POC-led cooperative, and we focus on digital and print media that moves people. And our whole goal is to make change irresistible. And I'm calling in from Washington, Seattle, Washington, also Duwamish territory. And it looks like we've got folks from all across the country, which is really cool. So before we even want to think about going to market, before we intend on spending any kind of advertising money on anything, we need to ask ourselves one very important question, which is, are you ready? Are you ready to go? Now, in order to answer that question, there is a lot of complex strategy that goes into it. This is a flow that I've created for you all, which will guide our presentation today. And some of these things you have probably done if you've attended other parts of these series, and I will briefly go over certain things again because it is so vital to follow the steps in order to create what's called a go-to-market plan, which will allow you to actually execute on your plans of buying, advertising, and etc. And it all starts with your overall organizational plans. I think you've done some of this work in the past, creating, your business model or your value propositions. So we'll go over that a little bit. After that, we are going to focus on what's called sort of the brand promise with the brand persona, and then also identifying your audience and your offering. That will all inform your messaging and your visual identity, which you'll need to create before you can go into your go-to-market plan, which includes materials, avenues, your sales funnel, and ultimately your delivery of your goods. And that's just strategy. The actual action of marketing happens in this execution and this iteration phase at the very end. So we're going to go through all this step by step, and the digital marketing and social media part of it, we'll talk mostly in the go-to-market plan, but I am going to give you a sort of a holistic approach of what you need to do before you can even really go into that. So let's start with your organizational plan. I'm not going to go into everything that goes into how you need to set up your business or your organization. I'm assuming that you all have created business models for yourselves. I'm just going to focus on two particular things that pertain to marketing and advertising, which is your value proposition and your market differentiation. So what is your value proposition? It is simply how you answer the question of what does your customer want. There are three main things really that your customers want to do. They want to accomplish goals. So your customer has tasks that they need to complete, and that's what one of their main baseline focuses is can I call this project done, or can I complete this task? The other thing that they want is for it to be easy. They want it to be easy to complete those tasks. And then ultimately, they'd like to be surprised and delighted by the process of completing the task. So, can I get it done? Is it easy for me to do so? And am I being surprised and delighted at the same time? So how do we provide that value? Well, we help people accomplish their tasks by providing them with products and services that can help them to accomplish those tasks. We give them pain relievers to alleviate any stress points that they would be having during those tasks. And then we give them gain creators, which is where that surprise and delight comes from, something that they might not have expected, but is a welcome surprise to them that is adding value to what we are giving them. Some of the ways that I'll answer these questions for Story 2 to give you some reference examples. What do Story 2's customers want? This is just a broad section, or this is a narrow section of our customer basis, but say our customer wants to have a functional website for their business or their organization. They also want something that they can easily manage themselves, and they want it to be really beautiful and done in a very expedient timeline. So that, again, is our goals. They want it to be easy, and they want it to be surprising and delightful. So how do we provide this value? Well, we have created a particular offering that is, we design and build your website together with you. That means that we're sitting down with you and we're really strategizing with you to create a website that works for your business and your organization. And then we do all the hard stuff on our end. And then we train you on how to manage the easy bits. So we make it easy for you by doing all the hard stuff for you and then training you on how to manage and take care of your website yourself. And then one of the surprising and delightful ways that we accomplish this is that we plan everything out in one single day-long workshop. And then we go into development for a few weeks. But we front load everything in this workshop that is enriching and quick. And so that we have all the strategy and we have branding exercises as well. And we do all that in one workshop, and then we just go straight into development. So then there's the market differentiation part. What makes you different and what makes you stand out in the marketplace? So there's it's kind of a difficult question to ask sometimes, and sometimes you need to practice before you can really define it, but you need to look at your competition or look at your peers in the field, and you ask yourself, what can I do to set myself apart? So I'm going to give you a few examples of this for us. For instance, what makes Story 2 Designs different than Squarespace? Well, Squarespace is a DIY website service. We're different than Squarespace because we help you build your website person to person. We also do a deep dive into your brand and your brand persona. Squarespace doesn't really offer those kinds of exercises, but we do. And then we also offer to help you write your content, which is something that Squarespace will just sort of, here's your website's templates, now fill it in. We actually have a copy director who can help do content one-on-ones with you to get your messaging across. Now, on the other spectrum, there are a lot of design firms out there. I like to say Acme and Acme Design Firm, sort of. And how are we different than some of those traditional design firms that may build websites for folks? Well, and this is a differentiation that you all have right away off the bat, we're a worker-owned cooperative. These other design firms, they're traditional top-down, and there's a few people who are, making the profit from the company. But we're a worker-owned cooperative, and everything is owned and managed by the workers. We also have our special unique one-day workshop offering that no one else offers. And then we're also just a small dedicated team of 5 people. And so you're not working with a large firm of people and maybe contractors. You're working with a small dedicated core team. So those are some of the ways that we establish our differentiation in the market, and this will go to help inform our messaging when we talk to our audience. So before we get into audience and offering, do you want to go into branding a little bit? What is a brand promise, and what is your brand persona? So yeah, what is the brand promise? Well, here's the anatomy of a brand promise. It needs to be simple, needs to be credible, needs to be unique, needs to be memorable, needs to be inspiring. This is actually really difficult to do, and you will spend months and maybe even years crafting the perfect brand promise. A lot of companies spend large fortunes consulting with folks to come up with the perfect brand promise. Ours is pretty simple. We aim to make change irresistible for our communities and the world. And this serves us in changing the world to promote cooperative workplace ownership, and also to elevate the level at which our clients are presenting themselves in the world, and to actually change who you are and what your company is doing, and to improve upon that as well. So that is our simple brand promise. We make change irresistible. Now we talk about brand persona. This is something we cover a lot in our one-day workshop, and I'll go over it just a little bit briefly. But why do we make brand personalities? Well, your business, your product, your organization, it's not a living thing, but people want meaningful relationships with everything. People want meaningful relationships with their cars, with their toys. And so creating a personality for your business or your product or your organization will help make that more desirable. At Story 2, we have this narrative that we share with folks, where there is what we call Story 1, which is a story that we're all living in, that's rooted in capitalism and exploitation. And what we're trying to do is write a new story that we call Story 2. Now, some of the things that have been created in this Story 1, some of the tools are actually very effective. So we are pulling those tools from Story 1 and applying them to Story 2, not necessarily, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And some of these things are, creating personalities for brands and marketing in general, and marketing techniques. So let's go into a few samples of how brand personality shows up. You walk into the grocery store, you're thirsty, you see an entire shelf of drinks that you could consume and that you could buy. And some, what you choose may depend on things like the ingredient or how the label looks, or just kind of what your taste buds are craving at that point. But what if I were to tell you that each of these drinks actually have a distinct personality, and that you may choose one of these drinks based off of your own personality? For example, this green smoothie may feel like it's actually nurturing and healing to you, and you may feel like it's trying to take care of you. This smart water might speak to your intelligence and try to present itself as sort of a beacon of knowledge. This sweet tea may feel like hospitable and familial and welcoming to you. This Gatorade certainly like sporty and exciting and full of energy. This Fiji water kind of exotic and adventurous. The San Pellegrino a bit more refined and a bit more high class. Monster energy drink a little bit rebellious and a little bit kind of dangerous. This Arizona tea a little bit artsy and kind of creative. This Synergy kombucha, optimistic about what you're going to be putting in your body and how it's going to make you feel better. Coca-Cola, charismatic and magical. Sprite, playful and cheeky. And Snapple, really authentic, down to earth and approachable. So all of these things actually have personalities to them that we subliminally associate with and in a way make them more desirable to ourselves. And so when we think about personality when it comes to branding, we're not necessarily targeting everybody in the entire world, but we're looking at the niches that we want to speak to and try to create something that they can identify with. So now that once you've sort of established what your brand promise is and what your brand persona is going to be, there's a lot more to branding, but those are some key things when it comes to messaging to your audience that you'll need to establish. At the same time, we can start working on who our audience is and what our offerings are going to be for those audiences. And this is what's called, what I call defining your market, or defining how you're going to show up in the market. So what is your market offering? It's pretty simple. What are you selling? It could be a physical product that someone can buy and it exists in the real world and has a very specific function. Or it could be a service that you're providing, whether you're a hotel or you're a travel agency, but you're going to be doing something for somebody. And then your product, your offering could be a little bit of both. For instance, someone who makes bespoke clothing for somebody, or someone who so someone who makes clothing, for instance, you might think that it's just a plain product and someone can walk away with it, but you might actually be tailoring that product to them. They might go in to get it fitted first, and so in that way it's both a product and a service. And we also find that websites have this dual offering as well, where we are a service in the fact that we are helping you to build this website, but at the end of the day we are presenting you with a final product, which is your website. And so this is just one of our offerings, but our probably our most defined offering is that we have a one-day branding and strategy workshop that includes a tailor-made website that's built for you in just a few weeks after that workshop. So this is our core offering. This is what we want to go and say, here's what we have as our market piece for our audience. And now we think, who is our market audience? Yeah, who needs your offering? When you define your audience at this level, you don't necessarily need to go into the nitty-gritties of like what demographics they are, what jobs that they have, what ages are they, where do they live. No, this is a little bit more hypothetical. You want to think at a higher level. You also want to segment it a little bit, so make sure that you're creating buckets for your audience, and at the end of the day you're thinking about how to make this offering accessible to those audiences. So I'm giving you a few examples here of who would need Story2's one-day workshop offering. Well, we believe that nonprofit organizers would be interested in this, and we also believe that small business owners would be interested in this. And why would they be interested in this? Because it's a cost-effective way to building a custom website. It's less complicated than doing it yourself, and you get a high quality product out of it. So these are the ways in which we want to make our offering accessible and desirable to these audiences. So now that we have our plan in place, it's time to go get customers, right? Well, no, there's a little bit more to it actually. We need to do a deep dive into what's called messaging and your visual identity. So these are very specific marketing components that you need to establish before you can create your go-to-market plan. There are three components of messaging, and that is your positioning message, which is something that we've already talked about before, that is established in your organizational plan, such as what your brand promise is and what your elevator pitch is. There's your target customer, and then there's also your value messaging. So your positioning message, again, it's your brand promise, it's how you are different than your competition, and it's also your elevator pitch. So once you've established sort of your brand promise and your market differentiation, absolutely you need maybe like a 25-word explanation of what it is that you actually do and how you're doing that. Then you need to identify your target customers. And this is where you can get a little bit more nitty-gritty. You want to identify what customers, what their problem specifically is, how you're going to provide your solution, and what is their role in the purchasing pipeline. So for instance, if let's take a target customer of a child who has soccer practice and who is practicing soccer after school. They may be thirsty and exhausted after practice, and those are problems that they want a solution for. Now, our solution might be to provide them with Gatorade, which is a delicious tasting, thirst quenching drink that also is filled with electrolytes to energize them. And then you need to think about what is their role in the purchasing pipeline. This kid probably can't buy Gatorade themselves, so they're going to be talking to their parents, or they're going to be talking to their coach about the idea of having Gatorade at practices. And so in this way, you can think about that child, what kind of messaging you want to give them, so that they can try to convince their mom, their dad, or their coach. In another, in contrast, let's say the target customer is the coach. They have, you know, kids that are exhausted and thirsty. They also want a solution, which is Gatorade. And what's their role in purchasing is they can buy it right away. So the messaging for them is different. So you need to really understand what your target, who your target customer is, so that you can speak to them effectively. And then once you've established that, you need to create value messaging for each one of those target customers, which is your value statement, sort of here's the value that you're going to be providing with your offering. What are the key points of that value? So really like come up with a bullet list of it's this, this, and this. So, you know, we do this by doing this, this, and this. Here are the product features that accomplish that. And then you have your proof points. Proof points would be like kid tested, mother approved, or 4 out of 5 dentists. Things like that. But you can even be a bit more concrete than that and actually be giving folks numbers. So in the instance of Gatorade, it might be like quench your thirst with a delicious tasting, energy filled, cool you down drink. We have electrolytes, and electrolytes increase your energy and do a number of other things. And so you'll need to come up with these value statements for, again, each one of your target audience segments. And then and then you need to craft the words that you're using around who your target audience is. So that's the messaging component to what you need in order to start creating advertisements and going to market. You also need your visual identity. Now, your visual identity is created in 4 components. You have your logo, you have your colors, you have your typography, and then your imagery and your composition. Your logo is consisted of 2 things. There's a logo mark, which is pictographic. It's sort of like an icon. Our logo mark is here off to the right. That S looking icon. And then you have your word mark, which is typographic. And you can see story 2, that's our typographic word mark right there. So those are the 2 things that make up a logo that you'll need to have. You need to establish what your color palette is for your brand. And there are a lot of things that you need to consider when establishing your color palette. And these are things like color psychology, cultural relevancy to colors. Certain cultures see colors in a different way. You need to think about accessibility. So is text going to show up on these colors that I'm choosing? If not, what are the rules that I'm going to have in place so that I make sure that everything I'm creating is accessible to folks? And then another thing to consider when it comes to colors is subjectivity. And this is an interesting one. You can talk to other people about it. You can rely on your own design senses. But really it's like, do these colors look good? And that's sort of a difficult thing to quantify. But psychology is one of the things that we can definitely hang our hat on because it ties so much into your brand personality and your brand persona. Take the color red, for example. Red is a very exciting and energetic color. That's why one of the most popular Gatorade colors is that red. Orange, can be friendly and approachable, whereas yellow is a little bit more optimistic and peppy. Green can be peaceful. Blue is seen as a very dependable color. Purples and pinks are more creative and magical. And grays and blacks and whites are very neutral. So take this into consideration and try to choose a color palette that really speaks to the brand persona and the brand personality that you're already establishing. Same thing kind of goes for typography. There's a psychology to typography. You also need to think about accessibility. Are the things that I'm picking going to be easy for folks to read? And again, subjectivity. I like this. I don't like this. So there's a few things that go into it. But some of the psychology behind typography, which again you can pair back to your brand persona, there are 5 really key types of typography. There's what's called serif typography, and it's more of a bookish approach to it. So serif refers to the little tails on the end of each letter. It's something that was developed as an approach to printing. And a lot of newspapers you'll see have this serif typography, and it can be seen as a bit more reliable. There's also what's called sans serif, which means there are no serifs to it. There's no tails at the end of the letters. It's very clean, very straight, and this can be seen a bit more approachable and down to earth. There's modern typography sets, which can make you seem a bit more progressive or a bit more refined and chic. There's what's called display typography, which can be wild and crazy and will make you look more unique. And then there's script and handwritten fonts, which can be a little elegant. Certain handwritten fonts also can make you seem a little bit more down to earth. But these are all things to consider. What's the psychology of the typography that you're choosing? Because that's going to subliminally inform your messaging and your audience and what you're telling your audience. And then when you come up with a typography pairing, Usually you either have one or two different fonts that you're using. What's called a header. So for big words and big titles, you use a header font, and then you have your body font. And these are Story 2's header and body fonts. We use Rufina, which is a serif typography, but it's also has a little bit of a storybook quality to it. So some of the psychology behind it is it's trusted, but it's also a little bit magical and fantastical. And then we have Syntony, which is a sans serif um, that's very no nonsense and very like direct when it comes to the content that we're talking about. And so it pairs well with some of the offerings that we have when it comes to like web development and content and strategy behind our approach. And then the last thing you need to consider before you start making your advertisements is imagery and composition. What are the kinds of photographs that you want to have? And there are a lot of resources out there for photography, some paid and some free, but I can't emphasize how important it is to have high quality, high definition photographs, no matter what your subject matter is, because that is what's going to make you stand out to your audience. It's just high quality photography. And there are websites out there. The one that we use the most is unsplash.com. It's a free repository of high quality photographs, and you can search for the subject matter that you want. Are you going to have illustrations as part of your brand visual identity? We have illustrations. The good thing about illustrations is that you can create whatever kind of imagery you want, but you need to make sure that you have a consistent illustration style, and so that you usually have an illustrator that you're working with. Also, when it comes to photography, if you have any photographers that you know of in your network, it's really helpful to have those photographers be able to take unique photos for you, because it can affect your brand imagery if you're using stock photography that other people have seen associated with other brands. It can diminish the unique messaging that you're having. And then the other thing to consider is layout and composition. What is your visual system going to be for displaying information? And these are all things that you should write rules around, because when you go to make your advertisements, your digital advertisements, you want to have these rules in place so that you can really make advertisements over and over again. All right, so have we gotten to the part where we talk about digital and social media? Yes, this is the part where we are now ready to go into what are our efforts around digital and social media marketing. It's time to write our go-to-market plan. And the go-to-market plan is made up of 3 parts. The first part that we need to think about is what are the materials that we are going to use, and what are the avenues that we're going to be using. So let's talk about avenues first. It's important to meet your audience where they are at. So do your best to find out what platforms your audience is on, and try to speak the language that they are speaking to them. Use their own language to talk to them. Some of these platforms are social media. The people who are on Facebook all the time are different than the people who are on Instagram all the time, who are different than the people who are on LinkedIn all the time, right? So you need to understand which platforms, what social media apps are your target audiences using, and then you can start to engage with your audience on those platforms. And there are a few ways to do that. One is paid advertising, and we'll go into that a little bit more in depth. We'll also go into, or you also want to do organic content, which is not necessarily paying for anything, but you're creating organic content to try and reach an audience organically, and then also to engage, to comment on people's posts, to like people's posts, to follow other people, to share what other people are doing. Those are some of the techniques for using social media as a marketing tool. Search engines and directories. This is one that a lot of people always ask us about, and very few people really understand how it works. There are things like search engine optimization, which has to do with what are the words that you're using in your website? What are the words that you want to be known for? These are called keywords. There's also a pay-per-click advertising, which means that, you know, maybe we're not trying to focus on people's organic search, but if I'm searching for something on Google and the first thing that comes up are actually advertisements, that's because people have paid for those particular keywords so that they have clicks in their advertising stream. And then there's also registered directories, and this could be things like Yelp, or anything that is a directory of businesses or organizations. And these can help you with what are called backlinks. So the way that your website climbs up in its ranking in Google is partially search engine optimization, but also backlinks. So are people referring to you as a source of information? And if folks are pointing their audience to your content, that's what's called a backlink. So it's a link that's going to you. And the more of those that you have, the higher your organization or your business will show up in Google search. There's also email marketing. This could be creating an opt-in newsletter that folks sign up for. You'll also need to consider how are you going to manage all the email addresses that you have and all the information that you have on these folks. And then also a communications plan is vital for email marketing. And then there's other digital media as well. You could think about, you know, do I have a podcast that is helping me market what I'm doing? Or am I posting videos on YouTube? Or is it some kind of crowdfunding effort that I need to focus on when it comes to my marketing? You know, do I have a product, but I want to develop interest by creating a campaign on Patreon or something like that? So there are many avenues to approach when it comes to digital media, and you'll need to identify which avenues you're going to focus on. Once you've identified those avenues, then you need to create your material for those avenues. So creating social media templates for your organization. You want to be making horizontal assets. You want to be making vertical assets. You want to be making square assets. You have to make sure you design all of these. I think folks who have been in some of these last classes were introduced to a program called Canva. Canva is a wonderful free to use program where you can set up your brand typography, your brand colors, and your brand logo, and then you can start to create a variety of different materials, social media templates being one of those things. And they will let you know what those ratios are for what your avenue is that you're going for. You need to create materials for your search engine and directory efforts. So you need to have a website if you want to show up on Google. So you need to make sure that your website is ready to go. You also need to make sure that your content on your website lines up with the keywords that you want to be known for. And then, you know, if you want to be registered. Oh, looks like we got. Is that a question? Oh, no, it's all good. Yeah, so if you're trying to sign up for a directory, or you know some directories that you want to be listed on, you need to upload your profile information and make sure that that's all ready to go before you even consider taking action on your marketing plan. email marketing. Make sure that you have email templates that are ready to go that you can fill in with content as you're considering, sending emails out to folks. So that's just part of the go-to-market plan. The other things you need to think about are what's called your sales funnel. And this is one of the kind of more not necessarily mysterious, but it's just such a vital part. And so here I have some images from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory when they're going way deeper into the factory and really understanding what the valuable things are and when it comes to this stuff. So what happens? What happens after your audience sees your message? What are they going to be faced with? Are they going to see a contact form that they can use to contact you? Are you going to invite them to have a phone chat with you? Are you just inviting them to follow you for more content? Are you going to give them a special coupon code? Are they going to be landing on a splash page that is going to be, giving them an offering or telling them what to do? So you need to make sure that you have this funnel set up so that ultimately what it comes down to is you are going to be giving them the offering, and they need to understand how they can get that offering. So they've seen your messaging, they know what it is, they say, yes, I want that. When they take that action, how are you going to create a funnel that then allows you to deliver that offering to them? And that's what's called delivery of goods. I like to simplify this a little bit because, again, it's at the end of the process, and it has a bit more to do with your customer relationship and your business plan than it is with your actual marketing efforts. But just to make sure that you have a plan in place to take care of your clients once you meet them. So make sure you have some very specific steps on how it is that you can meet them, understand what they're looking for, what is the offering that they wanted, and then provide that offering to them. And I cannot stress this enough. I wish that I had learned this lesson, or someone had said it to me explicitly when I first started Story 2 Designs. But always give your customer more value than the perceived cost. And that simple rule of, is the customer getting more than what they believe that they're paying for? If you can do that, 100% guarantee not just a successful business, but a wildly successful business. So this is one of the most important points that I can make. Always give your customer more value than what they perceive the cost is. All right, we did it. Wait, did we do it? No. Now is the point that you actually do your advertising. All of this has just been strategy to make sure that when we actually go into advertising, that we know what we're going to do. And this is so important because when it comes to advertising, you're going to be spending time and you're going to be spending money, and you don't want to waste any of that. So here we go to the final execute and iterate stage. This is your marketing rollout. It's time to take action. It's time to take your plan and start buying those keywords, buying that advertising, making those posts, and start collecting the emails. So I'm going to go back to our avenues and tell you a little bit about execution for all of them. So when it comes to social media, yeah, you're going to make your accounts, you're going to create your content posting schedule. For example, at Story2 Designs, we have an Instagram account, and every Thursday we try to do what's called a Throwback Thursday. And that just means that on every Thursday we are shouting out a project that we have done in the past, which not only uplifts our clients, but it also shows people what we're capable of doing and showcases our services. You need to go and start following other accounts, and you need to start engaging with those accounts. And then advertising. Advertising will go a little bit deeper into. Social media advertising might be the reason why a lot of folks are here in this meeting right now, because it's such a powerful tool. There are things that you can do. Most of what we have done is advertising on Facebook, and on Facebook there are a few steps that you need. You can define your audience, and I mean by defining your audience, like freakishly specific your audience. You can target what age they are, where do they live, what are they interested in, and so we've done our broader approach to who our audience is, and in our go-to market plan, that's when we actually go nitty-gritty and think about, these are all the fine demographics that we want to make sure that we are going to target. Once you have done that, you need to define, what is your advertising budget? How much a month are you going to spend? How much total are you going to spend? This is very key to make sure that you have that budget in place before you actually go and start buying stuff. And then also, what is your advertising schedule? How long is your campaign going to be running for? How many ads are you going to be sending out there over the course of 6 months? So make sure you have your schedule in place so that you know exactly when you're doing the things that you need to be doing. Search engines and directories. This is when you want to go out and buy your keywords. Say that you're a house cleaning service. You want to think about buying words for, house cleaning or any words associated with that. You also need to define what your advertising budget is going to be. How much are you going to spend on these keywords? And then, yeah, registration for your directories. Is it going to cost you money to be registered on these directories? Email marketing. You need to be building your list of contacts. This is where a customer management system is going to be very helpful. So services like MailChimp or Salesforce are going to help you not only create schedules for sending your content, but they're also going to be able to manage your customers and bucket them into lists so that you have your target audiences neatly defined. And then you want to be writing your content. Yeah, it's gonna take you maybe a couple hours every week to write a weekly email that you send out. So you need to budget the time for that. And then there's the iteration phase. So once you have started doing social media advertising, you want to go back and refine your audience, and you want to look at how ads are performing, and you want to test your different messaging and adjust your budget so that you can make sure that you are being as efficient as possible with it. And then you want to track the data. A lot of social media advertising has really great tools for tracking performance and tracking data and seeing how people are clicking and seeing how many people are viewing and seeing how many people are converting. So you really want to look at that data to see how you're performing. Same with search engine directories. Maybe some of the keywords that you initially are focusing on are not performing as well as these other keywords. So you want to adjust your budget appropriately to focus on the things that are doing really well. I see some things in group chat. Any advice for free or affordable email marketing templates, suggestions for? I'm going to try to address all of that. I'm almost done with this presentation, and so I'll just address all those in the last few minutes that we have. But yeah, adjust your budget for the keywords that you're doing. Also track the data. You can see how things are performing. Same thing with email marketing. Test different ways to message folks and then track that data as well. And yeah, our final slide here, track the data, 100%. That's the core focus of digital marketing, is that you have data to help you refine your efforts. So make sure that you're tracking that data. And yes, I know that I've been speaking for a long time, but I'm done finally. And so I can answer your questions. So I see a question, any advice for free or affordable email marketing templates? We always recommend MailChimp. MailChimp makes it really easy, we find. It's also really easy to integrate with your website if you want to add a sign-up form. They also have really beautiful templates that you can use to create, so I recommend MailChimp for that. There are also other things out there like Constant Contact, and then there are particular tools like Powerbase, which are more integrated as like a customer management system that has email and email templates as part of it or a plug-in to it. So that's what I recommend for email marketing. There are definitely some free services out there, and how deep you want to go into it. Paid services, again, are always more robust, but for small businesses, something like MailChimp is just fine. Let's see, suggestions for posting or advertising schedule tools. Hootsuite is a social media management platform where you can track the data and schedule things like Facebook posts, Twitter posts, Instagram posts. So Hootsuite is what that's called, but also simply just setting things up in your calendar and having those or having just like a document that where you've outlined, you know, how you're going to be posting for the next few weeks. It could be as low fidelity as that. Any suggestions for small business friendly tools and websites for each area? I'm not 100%. Oh yeah, you're just asking for those. Yeah, so at the end of this, when we do send out the slide, I know somebody is asking for the slide deck. I can create a list of tools for each of those avenues if you would like. Seeing another thing. Yeah, free and affordable, high quality pictures. Yeah, John, if you can just capture all these in chat, I'll make sure to include all of them.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay, are there any other final questions? All right, I want to thank Cooper for a really wonderful presentation. Recording of the session and the slides will be sent out in probably the next week or so. If you have further questions, you can email us at info@nwcdc.coop, or you can also, of course, reach Cooper at story2designs.coop. And I think we're right at time, so this is wonderful. Again, thank you all for participating, and the video will be up on our website and on YouTube, and we look forward to maybe working with people in the future and hearing from you on how much you enjoyed this session.
Absolutely. And one last thing, co-ops rule, man. You're all going to do great. I'm so excited to have you all here. So thanks so much, John.
You're welcome. Okay. Bye, everyone.